Welcome back. It's week 4, the final week of the Spring Stitch Sampler Knit Along. I'm Holly, Bat Yarn's Length, and I'll be showing you how to knit the key and basket stitch. This is a mosaic stitch pattern or a slip stitch pattern, and if you aren't participating in our knit along, you can still learn how to knit the stitch. For those of you who are in the knit along, the interesting thing about this stitch, it's our capstone stitch, is it actually requires you to slip 2 stitches in a row right here. And there are a couple of these repeats in this pattern, as you can see. So you'll have that in 4 different rows in the pattern, where you're slipping 2, knitting 1, slipping 2. So it's definitely an interesting pattern. It's a little bit more challenging. You are going to have to pay close attention to your tension across these stitches because you want to avoid any puckering in your work, especially so close to the end. And I'm sure your work looks beautiful up to this point. Also, remember you're going to be working setup rows that are still attached to your work. I am working a swatch, so I have cast on, but there is no seaming required in this project. So if you are working with the knit along, will already have these in place. So you're going to work down and back in our contrast color, which is color B, and we're going to start the pattern with color A, which is white. If you are just joining us, I'm using Red Heart Super Saver and white and Monet. And my needles are Chow Goose for anyone who's interested in that as well. If you're going to be applying this pattern to another project, you can do that by following the pattern for the medium size, which is the Lapgan. There was no need to add any border stitches to this pattern to make it fit the rest of the blanket. So both the chart and the written pattern for the medium or Lapgan size will work in any other applications. The pattern's worked in a multiple of 16 plus 3, so I've cast on 19 because I'm just going to do 1 repeat. And the pattern has 32 rows, so it is quite long. Let's get started. Oh, got a knot there. Let me snip that really quick, just so I don't have to work around it. Okay, here we go. So for row 1, pretty simple and straightforward. I'm going to start off with a knit 1 that is my border stitch that comes with the pattern, and then knit 1, slip 1, knit 3, slip 1, and do that twice. Knit 3, slip 1, and we're going to end that with a knit 2. So that's row 1. If you're new to mosaic knitting, you can just, there's nothing you do to start off when you're adding a new color. You just pick it up and start knitting with it. And you'll see as we work, we'll switch colors as we go, alternating between color A and color B, and we'll just carry the yarn up. We won't be snipping, and so there's really only in each color at the beginning and end 1 tail to weave in. Goodness, no more thumbs today. And remember, on all of the even rows, we're just working back, knitting the stitches we knit the last time around, and slipping the stitches that we slipped the last time around. And I do sometimes use my thumb to make sure I've got the correct tension. You'll see me hold kind of my thumb right here when I wrap. That's just to prevent me from wrapping too tightly. You can definitely try that out if you're having that problem. Just figure out what works for you. Some folks are tighter knitters than others. So for some, it may not be a problem at all. So just give those a little tug. Make sure that's nice and tight. And there we go. So that is row 1 and row 2. For row 3, we're going to go back to color B. If I can find the one that's not my tail. Here we go. I did put my yarns on different sides today, thinking that would be easier and help with the tangle, but we'll see. All right, so for row 3 in color B, we're going to start with a knit 1. That's our edge stitch. And then we're going to slip 1, knit 3 pretty much all the way down. So slip 1, knit 3. And all the way till we have 2 stitches left, and we're just going to knit those 2. Okay. So we will turn that and work back the way we came. A lot of folks prefer to slip purlwise both ways. You'll see me kind of flip-flopping with slips, but always making sure not to twist my stitches. So do what works for you. Just make sure you don't have any twisted stitches as you go. And if you're new to mosaic knitting, you may notice that we are always slipping with our yarn in the front on the wrong side. That's because we're slipping because we want that color to show on the right side of the work. So when you're on the right side of the work, you slip with the yarn in back, and when you're on the wrong side of the work, you slip with the yarn in front. So you end up with the same, slip's always on the same side of the work. Okay, so that's what we have so far. That was row 3. Now we're on row 3 and 4. Now we're on row 5, and we're back to color A. Going to start off knitting 4, and as you can see, I'm just picking it up and working with it, carrying it up. Let's give that a little tug to make it nice and neat. So knit 4, that was our setup in the beginning of our row. So we're going to slip knit, then we're going to slip knit 3 twice. And this one's interestingly written. It's slip 1, knit 5 is the next instruction, but when you end the work, you're gonna end the repeat a little differently. So we're gonna slip 1 and end with a knit 4. And if we were working across the entire project, you'd see 5 used multiple times, and then we'd end with a 4. But since we're only working 1, it's only a 4. All right, we're almost getting to the good stuff with our double slips. They're coming up. Okay, there we go. So this is what we have so far. It's not looking like much of anything yet, but we'll definitely get there. Okay, we are on row 7 now, and 7 is our first row that's gonna actually require us to do 2 slips. So we're gonna change colors as we do each time on an odd row. And we're going to start off with a knit 2. and then we're gonna slip 2. So you may be slipping purlwise, you've seen me kind of flip-flop, so I'm gonna slip the way I'm comfortable, slip 2, and then we're gonna keep working. So it's a knit 3. So sometimes I put my finger in, sometimes I kind of hold it back there. I always want to double check because the tendency is to go ahead and knit, and when you do that, you create this bunching. So do something, whether it's just knitting super loosely or holding it down with your finger as you work, whatever you need to do to keep that nice and loose. Okay, and if it is a little extra loose, that's fine. That'll work out, you know, when you're blocking or just using the blanket, even if you don't actually block it. I know that that's sacrilege to some people in the knitting community, but it is a blanket, so you can get away with it. So slip 2, knit 3, and then we're going to slip 1, knit 3 twice. Now we're going to slip 2, knit 1, and that's the end of our pattern, and knit 1 for the last edge stitch. So our pattern, if we remove this edge stitch, will actually end right here and starts here. So you can see that these two and these two, they actually make one repeat of this little shape I'm going to show you right here. So as we're working them now, they're kind of split, and one's on one end of the work and one's on the other. But as we get further down to row 23, you'll be able to work one straight across and see what the entire thing looks like. So it does look a little sad in its current state on the swatch, but don't worry, you'll get a chance to see it in its full glory. All right, and we're double slipping on the way back too, remember, so mindful of your tension. Just making sure that looks okay. Looks all right. This one's definitely looser, but that's fine. Like I said, it'll all even out in the wash. Oop. I almost forgot to slip my second one. That was not at all staged. That was just me getting lost in La La Land. Which is one nice thing I think about mosaic knitting is it may be a little complex on one row because you're trying to remember what is this, slip how many and knit how many, and trying to work through all of that and keep your count and make sure it's right. When you get to the end and it is right, you're excited. But then on the next row, you can just kind of zone out and knit what's in front of you and slip what's in front of you. So, okay. Hopefully with fewer errors than I would have made if I had slipped one. All right, so we've got our double slips here. That's the challenge of the week. So now we're on row 9. Gonna go back to white and start us with a knit 4. Slip 1, knit 3 twice. Another slip 1, knit 3. Slip 1, knit 1. Slip 1, and it's another one where it would be 5 if we were repeating, but we're going to end the last one on 4. And there are a few, you know, as you work through these mosaic patterns, you'll see that there are quite a few portions of patterns that repeat, right? They may not be exact rows, although some of them are, but a lot of the same short little snippets are repeated. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. This pattern does have a couple of rows that repeat, you know, that you use more than once in the 32, but actually not very many compared to most other patterns of this length. we're starting to see a little something take shape here. Next is our row 11. So we're switching back to color B. This is one thing that I really like about mosaic knitting, aside from the many other things that I've told you that I like about it, is if you get lost in the pattern, and that can be pretty simple to do, all you have to do is go back and look and say, oh, where was I? And actually, I think I just was getting too chatty. I was supposed to slip that one. So we're on 11, knit 1, slip 1, and knit 3. All the way down till 2 are left. But yeah, that's one of the great things about mosaic knitting is, you know, if you just finish working with color A, it's time to use color B. And if color B is, you know, row 15 or row 19, you've got a pretty good idea of where you are. It definitely helps. All right, we're doing our slip 1, knit 3. We have 2 left. I'm going to slip 1, knit 1, and turn. And if you're working with a variegated yarn, you will sometimes catch a stitch that maybe looks like your contrast color. I know that there were some yellows from this variegated yarn that I missed the first time around when I was working, and had to go back and kind of work that out. So bright lights are your friends if your colors don't look, you know, if you use a variegated, then it can be a little tricky, and if you use colors that are too close together, it can be a little tricky, but if you're using solids, you're probably fine. But bright lights are your friend. All right, now we're seeing some shape in there, some interesting stuff taking place. Next, we're color A, row 13. And we've got to slip 1, knit 3 twice. And this row looks a little like algebra, right? You do the stuff in parentheses first. All right. Slip 1, knit 3 twice, slip 1, knit 1, slip 1, knit 3, slip 1, knit 1, and we end with a knit 1. Woo! Woo, that one. All right. That's going to be one that I would have to read the pattern every row. Not something I can just kind of remember. And one of the things that I kind of, you know, said to myself as I was working, most patterns you're only slipping one in between, so I wouldn't have to remember the slips. I just need to know how many stitches to knit between them. So I might be saying to myself 1, 3, 1, 3. If it were slip 1, knit 1, slip 1, knit 3. But then when I got to this pattern, I couldn't even do that because some of those, you know, you slip 2. And so then I would have to say the slips and the knits, and it was too much to remember. So this might be, for some of you, the first one where you really have to pay attention to what you're working. Okay, that's 13. Next, we're moving to 15, and 15 is pretty simple to remember. We're going to start with knit 3. And then it's slip 1, knit 3 all the way down, and that should work out perfectly. You know, I've worked these blankets and I've worked these swatches that I'm going to show you in some contrasting colors with the colors inverted, but I am still, every time I cast on, worried that I did not do the right number. How many rows of this have I worked? And I'm still going, oh, I don't know if that's right, but it's right. right. So far, so good. All right, our next row is 17. We're back to color A. A little more yarn pulled out and ready. All right, start us off with a knit 2. Slip 1, knit 1, slip 1, knit 3. We're going to do that twice. Slip 1, knit 1, slip 1, knit 3. Ooh, tension's a little tight there. What if I split the yarn and didn't notice? All right, and then slip 1, knit 3, and end with a knit 1. Turn and work our way back. There's a little yellow stitch trying to sneak by. Ooh, back and forth a lot on this one. Oh, if you hear that jingle jangle, that's one of my kittens. You guys have heard them before. All right, switch into color B for 19. We're making pretty good progress. We're over halfway done. Knit 1, and then we're gonna go with slip 1 and knit 3. So remember, you know you're always going to knit that first stitch. And then keep going, slip 1, knit 3. You know you'll always knit the first and the last stitch just because you can't carry that one up. Because you are mosaic knitting, you're alternating colors. As slip stitches in the first row would just end up a wonky mess. So your first and your last stitch will always be knitted and not slipped. All right, I did my slip 1, knit 3 all the way down. 2 stitches remain. I'm gonna slip 1 and then just end with a knit 1. And turn. Ooh, almost lost my stitch there. Okay, so this is row 20. All right, so this is what it looks like so far. With row 21, we'll go back to white. And white is color A. So if you're not using the same colors, just make sure to use your color A. We're gonna start with a knit 4. I always like it when there's a few knit stitches in the beginning. It just feels sturdier to me to start. And then slip 1, knit 1, slip 1, knit 5. And 5, as we know, is going to be the base for the stitch that I showed you that has the slip, slip, knit, slip, slip next time around. So this is where we know that little shape is going to come in when we get back to it. Okay. All right, so knit 5 and then slip 1, knit 3 twice. Slip 1, knit 3. And for this one, we're gonna end our last repeat with knit 2. That is our last repeat. Okay, so we know this 5 is going to be where our slip stitches are, but we won't get to those, and our double slip stitches. We don't get to those till 23. So let's finish 22. That's the exciting part, right? The double slip. Okay. All right, here's the fun part. The fun part. We're working row 23. We're going to be using color B, and if I can find it, we're going to be using color B, and we're going to have our double slips. So here we are. You may have noticed a small disruption in the video. We're row 23, color B. I just had to tink this whole row and half of the next one. So you may see that some of my stitches look a little wonky. We'll just correct those as we get to them, okay? So 23, color B, starts with a knit 3. Sound like Dr. Seuss. Okay, and we're gonna slip 1, knit 3. Slip 1, knit 3, slip 2, knit 1, slip 2, and you can see these are the 5 white stitches, the 5 color A stitches, and we know these 2 and these 2 are the slips. So that's a way of checking your progress as you go, and making sure that you are in the right place with your slips. Anything that you can do to not realize at the very end of the row that something has messed up makes me a fan. So slip 2, knit 1, slip 2, knit 3, and then slip 1, knit 3 to end it. Oops, see, I told you they would be all kinds of twisted. I got a little panicked and just kind of shoved them back on there, so so there we go. Hopefully no permanent damage. Okay, awesome. And on our way back, knit the knit, slip the slips. Try not to upset your camera. Okay, and there we are, passing them again. And ending with our knit 3 that we began with. Okay, so we've survived the row. Whoops. Let me get that yarn out of the way so you can kind of start to see the shape happening. It's got these little ladders, kind of like we've worked before, but then it's also got ladders coming under them, so it'll look like a weave pattern with these little keyholes when we're finished. All right, row 25, back to color A. You can find it. Always starting with a knit. I'm gonna start with a knit 2. Slip 1, knit 3, slip 1, knit 5. And the 5 is going to line up with this because it's kind of capping that off. It's just a way of checking where we are, making sure we're in the right place. Slip 1, knit 1. Slip 1, knit 3. And end with a knit 1. So we know we're in the right spot because we finished squaring off this little isolated stitch right here, which is part of the key, I guess, in our pattern. Oh goodness, there went my light. There you go, hopefully you guys can see okay. Well, it has not been a favorable day for me for technology, but you know how it goes. Okay, there's my 5. Okay, that's 25. Guys, we're just about done. Okay, so you can see it's nice and squared off now with this little part poking down. It's going to have the same part poking up, so we'll know when we get to that needs to be a white stitch. So it's going to be a slip stitch. That's another way of checking our progress as we go. So we're on 27 now. I just use the color to double check, so using my own tricks. All right, we're going to start with a knit 1 and then we're going to slip 1. Knit 1. Slip 1, knit 3 till we get to the end. Slip 1, knit 3. And end with a slip 1, knit 1. Now you can really start to see that shape there. Oh, there we go. My white yarn is getting in the way. Okay, let's see what we got. There you go, the pattern is emerging. And we are on row 29, back to color A. So we've got 2 down and backs left for our swatch. 29 starts with a knit 4. You know how I like those nice solid beginnings. And then slip 1, knit 3, slip 1, knit 1. And then slip 1, knit 3, except our last repeat, we're gonna end with a knit 2, because that's what we got. There we go. Looking good. Uh-oh, I've got a curious kitten interested in what I'm doing. Oh no, we've got a visitor. Pardon the interruption. I'm gonna get this feet line off my desk. There you go. That was Haley, the curious kitten, coming to check things out. Okay, So 2 more rows to go. We're gonna finish off with color B, rows 31 and 32. And those begin with a knit 3, and then we're just gonna slip 1 knit 3 to the end, so it's nice and easy. You can hardly be blamed for being interested because I am playing with yarn. Uh-oh, back on the desk. 1 second, guys. That was louder than I meant for it to be. She actually jumped down on an Amazon box, so don't be concerned. Wow, it has really been an interesting week 4, hasn't it? All right. Almost there. Whew. Okay, so this is it, y'all. That's the swatch done. That's what the pattern repeat looks like. I know it doesn't look like too much by itself, but once you really start to lay it out, it's kind of like a mosaic tile. It really creates a beautiful giant picture by being worked over and over again. If you are working for the knit along, you're going to keep going until your work measures the final length from the cast on edge, and then you're going to work a couple rows in your finishing color, and yeah, and then you're done. I can't believe that it's been 4 weeks and we are actually done. It's a little crazy. Okay, so let's take a look at what this particular stitch looks like when we work it up in different colors. So as you can see, it looks very different when it's solids versus variegated, and then it also looks very different. I don't know if you can see both of these in one, but it looks very different when you're working it with one color as the dominant color versus the other color being the dominant color. So what I've done here is I used the white as the setup row. Do you use the white as the setup row? Yes. Just checking my ends. The white is the setup row, and then the blue for this one is row 1 color A, and then the blue was the setup row and the white is the row 1 color A. So these little keys are going to be in whatever your first row of the pattern is in, not your setup row but row 1. So you can see how they're a little bit different. I think they're both attractive. It's just a matter of what you're looking for with regard to light and dark. Okay, now let's take a look at the charts. By now you know how to read the charts for mosaic knitting. We're moving right to left. Each 2 rows are represented with 1 row because they're worked similarly, not exactly the same, but similarly. And then the key on the right tells you what color is, which row is worked in which color. The small size, which is the baby blanket size, has 3 additional border stitches on each end, so 6 total. It has the most, and this was, of course, to make it fit in with the other weeks. So instead of thinking of it as a multiple of 16 plus 3, you should really be thinking of it as a multiple of 16 plus 9. The medium, which is the lapgan size, it doesn't require any additional border stitches. I mentioned that before. It's worked in the standard 16 plus 3 for this pattern. So you can use that as your key if you're adapting it for something else. And then the large size has 5 additional stitches. There are 2 at the beginning and then there are 3 at the end. And so you can kind of think of that pattern multiple as like a 16 plus 8 repeat. Okay, so that is it. Hopefully you have enjoyed this knit along. This is the stitch that we worked today. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you have questions, you want to share your work, you know, we've got a Facebook group that you're welcome to join. If you're not into Facebook, you can always join our mailing list on our website. Down below, you're going to find a link to the written pattern for this stitch and every other stitch and then knit along. You're also going to find links to all the videos in this series so far, links to the yarn that I'm using, links to the needles that I'm using, and a link to the blog. I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, take 2 seconds and subscribe to the channel, and then next time I have a knit along, you'll see it pop up here and you'll be able to follow along with us.